You heard the key in the lock, and your body knew before your brain did. The shoulders tightened. The room recalibrated. You were already reading the footsteps. Wait, speed, pause, before the door opened. That was not childhood anxiety. That was a child running a threat detection system sophisticated enough to keep them safe. What happens when that system never learned the danger had passed is exactly where this goes. Growing up in an emotionally unpredictable home doesn't just shape your memories, it rewires your nervous system. When a child cannot predict whether a parent will enter calm or volatile, the brain adapts by staying permanently elevated. The amygdala, which processes threat, becomes sensitized, lowering its threshold so it fires faster, more often, on less. Researchers studying adverse childhood experiences call this a recalibrated baseline. The nervous system doesn't return to neutral because neutral was never safe. Everything that follows is a direct consequence of that recalibration. You are in a room where nothing is wrong, and your body doesn't believe it. The silence gets scanned. A shift in someone's posture registers before they've spoken. The pause before the reply. The tone inside the word, not just the word itself. All of it logged. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a chronic state of elevated environmental monitoring that was once a survival tool. In an unpredictable home, reading the room wasn't a habit. It was the only reliable form of protection you had. The cost is this. Safe rooms don't feel safe. Your nervous system is still running a search for a fire that isn't there, and the search itself never stops. And the scanning doesn't stop at the people you know. Meeting someone for the first time, you already know more about their emotional state than they've chosen to share. The micro-tension in the jaw, the fraction of a second delay before the smile, the word they swapped at the last moment. This is not intuition. This is a skill built young, reading a parent whose moods arrived without announcement. Alan Shore's research on early emotional attunement shows that children in high-stress homes develop an acutely calibrated capacity for reading non-verbal cues. You became fluent in a language no one taught you. The problem is, there is no off switch. Every conversation becomes a performance review you didn't agree to sit for. But here's where it turns inward. Before the argument begins, you've already decided to lose it, not because you're weak, because somewhere early, you learned that your presence in conflict made things worse. So the shrinking begins before anyone asks for it. Opinions get qualified before they're stated. Apologies arrive before the accusation. John Bowlby's work on attachment shows that children who cannot predict a caregiver's response learn to suppress their own needs to maintain proximity, because proximity, even to an unpredictable person, felt safer than isolation. That same logic is still running now. Not with your parents, with your partner, your colleagues, the friend who raised their voice once. This is not people-pleasing. It is a child's survival strategy running on adult hardware. Now stop for a second. Every pattern you've recognized so far, the scanning, the reading, the shrinking, none of it is damage. It is architecture. You built something functional inside a structure that gave you no other option. A child doesn't develop a sophisticated threat system because they are broken. They develop it because it worked. That changes what comes next. The event hasn't happened. You are already inside it. The conversation has been rehearsed. The outcomes traced. The exit located. Your body is carrying a cortisol load that belongs to a version of the future that may never arrive. This is anticipatory anxiety, and it runs deeper than worry. It is a nervous system that learned that being caught unprepared was dangerous. Preparation was protection. The cost is concrete. You get to the birthday, the dinner, the conversation you'd been looking forward to, and something in you is already somewhere else. The energy was spent before the thing began. What arrives is a version of you that already ran the mile before the race started. The next one is the one most people never name out loud. Someone in the room is upset. It is immediately your problem, not your fault. You know that intellectually. But your body doesn't wait for the facts. It is already scanning for what you did, already composing the repair. You absorbed the emotional weather of a parent and made it your responsibility to change it. That is not empathy. Empathy is chosen. This is reflexive. This is a child who learned that a regulated parent meant safety, and who made themselves responsible for producing that regulation. You carry other people's moods like a debt you owe. You can feel when something is off before they know it themselves. And it is never neutral. It is always on you. You got through the day. No one saw it. That's the point. The tone was modulated. The face was managed. What landed got absorbed without showing where it hit. You have been performing calm for so long that you can't always tell when you actually feel it. The dissociation that Bessel van der Kolk describes in adults who grew up managing emotional chaos isn't dramatic. It is quiet. It is arriving home and feeling nothing. It is being asked how you are and not knowing. The mask kept you safe. It cost you access to yourself. That is not a flaw. That is what it looks like when a child had no room to be visibly struggling. The first false belief is that alertness keeps you safe. It did once. It does not now. When the scanning starts, name it, even silently, even just the word scanning. That single act interrupts what runs automatically, and interruption is the whole game at first. The second false belief is that shrinking prevents harm. It doesn't. It only delays your presence. Try one opinion stated without the qualifier in front of it. One reply sent without the apology that wasn't owed. That is not a small thing. The third false belief is that other people's emotional states are yours to fix. Notice the moment the repair starts composing itself in your head. Stop before the first sentence forms. That pause, that one beat of not rushing in, is the entire practice. It does not have to be more than that yet. You became very good at something most people never had to learn. You learned to read a room before you could read a book. You learned to protect relationships by making yourself smaller. You carried the emotional weight of people who should have been carrying yours. That is not nothing. That is not weakness. That is a child who survived by becoming extraordinarily perceptive, extraordinarily careful, and extraordinarily self-contained. What would change? Not tomorrow, not after some long process. If you finally stopped treating other people's silence as a threat you need to decode. If you know someone who always seems to sense when something's wrong before anyone speaks, send them this. They'll understand why the moment they see it.